guys, and welcome back to Riley's on the Road.
We went to Santa Fe, New Mexico and Holbrook, Arizona.
Let's check out what happened.
The drive from San Antonio, Texas to Santa Fe, New Mexico was 700 miles, so we stopped for an overnight. Then we continued to a campground in Santa Fe. There was snow on the ground from a recent snowfall, but thankfully while we were here, it was great weather. On Monday, we went to one of the Manhattan Project's National Historical Park sites. There are 3 main areas total, one in Washington, one in Tennessee, and the one in Los Alamos, New Mexico that we went to, all 3 in one national park. The Manhattan Project was a top-secret effort to build the first atomic bomb. The site in Tennessee produced the enriched uranium for Little Boy, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, and the first nuclear weapon used in a war. The site in Washington produced the plutonium for Fat Man, the bomb dropped on Nagasaki. And the site in New Mexico, where we were, is where the bombs were made and assembled. Some of the reasons the Los Alamos site was chosen was because of the empty space all around them, and there was already a boarding school there, which had quite a few buildings which could immediately be used by the Manhattan Project. They built around 100 buildings in 100 days, because so many scientists, engineers, and other important people were coming there. The closest town was 16 miles away, which gave them isolation. The whole town had only one address, a P.O. box. The site was directed by J. Robert Oppenheimer. At one point, the project employed 130,000 workers, and by the end of the war had spent $2.2 billion. I think the Manhattan Project is super interesting, and I learned many facts about it here. The volunteers were very nice and knowledgeable. We got our Junior Ranger badges, then drove through the areas that were part of the Manhattan Project. Sadly, not many of the original buildings are left.
On the same day, we went to Bandelier National Monument. The main attraction are these really cool cliff dwellings used by ancient Pueblo people. We saw a deer on our walk to the dwellings. We passed other ruins too. The cliff dwellings are like caves carved into the side of the cliffs. We could actually go inside the caveates, and it was super cool to see these unique dwellings and imagine what it would have been like to live in one. We also saw some petroglyphs. There was snow there, which was kind of crazy because it wasn't that cold.
The drive back was very pretty with the sun setting by the mountains. We drove by the cliffs and through town.
The New Mexico State House looks quite different from all the other state capitol buildings. That's because it's round. This capitol is one of the newer ones, which you can tell from the Senate and the House. We got a tour and saw lots of the art along the halls. There was a sci-fi exhibit in the lobby of the governor's office. The rotunda is at the center of the building with a stained glass ceiling, but no dome.
We went to the Shed for dinner. It's one of the best local Mexican food places in Santa Fe, and we all thought it was good. We had tried coming on a different night, but it was too busy, so we came back earlier on Tuesday.
We had to go through this very narrow underpass on our 6-hour drive to Holbrook, Arizona, and it was kinda nerve-wracking. Instead of going straight to the campground to set up the trailer like we usually do, we drove to Petrified National Park. We took the trailer with us on our drive through the park, which is quite different for us. There was a big storm coming, so we didn't know if we would be able to explore the park later in our stay. It all worked out in the end, and it was cool to see all the petrified wood. There was also a really pretty sunset.
The next morning, we went for a walk. We went on the Crystal Forest Trail in Petrified Forest. This was a very interesting national park. The petrified wood was close to where it was unearthed. To explain, petrified wood is a fossil. It forms when a tree is buried, then the groundwater rich in dissolved minerals seeps in, replacing the original plant with silica, calcite, pyrite, and other minerals, like iron, which give it its colors. This trail had a lot of wood around it. Some of the pieces were stunning. There were chunks with beautiful colors, others that were super long, and some that were huge and old. It was really cool to get up close and look. After that, we visited the rock with petroglyphs. It was cool to see it and study for a minute. Lastly, we stopped at the visitor center to get our Junior Ranger badges.
We drove 4 long days this week, and though we've driven through New Mexico a dozen times, I've had no love lost for the state. It's in pretty abysmal straits, especially Albuquerque and tribal lands. However, we enjoyed Carlsbad last year, and Santa Fe seemed like a very quaint, well-kept capital city. We had great spicy New Mexican fare at the Shed. Our stay in Holbrook was quick. We saw the highlights and busted out of there right before a major storm blew through Flagstaff. With a no refund for early departure policy, it was by far our most expensive one-night stay.
The petrified wood was so cool.
See you next week on Riley Down the Road.
Bye!